Good morning and happy new year. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jacob Borkover here on the webinar team at Rectangle Health, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to start the new year with us. We've got a great presentation for you in store today, Jumpstart 2024 HIPAA and OSHA compliance training with our very own Terry McDonald. So before we jump into things here, a few quick housekeeping notes, and then we'll get started on the presentation. So this is a 1.5 hour, 1.5 CE credit course. We are PACE accredited through AGD, the Academy of General Dentistry, to provide CE for this course. So in order to get that CE and for us to maintain our accreditation, you do have to be on for the duration of the presentation. And we're also going to have 3 polling questions throughout the webinar. Got to make sure you're paying attention as well. So those CE credits will be sent out to you within 2 weeks from today's presentation. So be on the lookout for those in your email inbox, and those will come to whichever email you registered for this webinar with. If you're joining us on mobile today and you can get to a desktop, we do recommend that. It is a better viewing experience and it'll be easier for you to answer those polling questions. So if you can do that, we highly recommend it. At the end of this webinar, you're going to be prompted to take a brief survey. If you could fill that out, it's just 6 questions, helps us know how we can continue to improve and offer the best webinar content for you in 2024. If you have any questions at all today, feel free to email us or put it in the chat and we will get back to you as soon as we can on all things support related. And then I always get the question, we will be sending out everything to you within 24 hours. So that includes a link to the recording, that includes the slides, special offers, everything. So you will be getting that sent to your email within 24 hours of the presentation today. I'm also going to be sharing a few links in the chat today. Terry's going to walk you through a risk assessment. We're going to have the link in case you want to learn more about our product for a demo request. All that stuff is going to live in the chat as well. So with that, I am very excited to introduce Terry McDonald. He's the Director of Compliance Solutions here at Rectangle Health. And when it comes to all things HIPAA and OSHA compliance, not too many people that are more knowledgeable than Terry. So Terry does a great job of helping small medical and dental practices get all of their compliance up to date and right. So with that, Terry, I'm going to send it into you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob Borkover. Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, depending where you're at, but good morning, America. Very happy to be here. And before I even get started, let me thank you for the opportunity. I mean, you can kind of be doing anything you want to be, but you chose to be here for HIPAA training. So salute to you. HIPAA, as we all know, HIPAA is not crazy. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not any of those things. Unfortunately, it's a necessary tool we all have to deal with. We all have to manage it. So my goal here is to make this as least painful as possible. I don't want to say entertaining. It might be a little animated. I don't know, be quite entertaining, but make it fun, make it interesting, help you be engaged. I don't want you falling asleep during this. I need you awake for those polling questions so you get credit. So just come along for this journey. Hopefully I can teach you 1 or 2 things. Often 1 or 2 things can go a long ways to saving your practice, tons of money, tons of headaches. So I'm going to do my best to lay this information out for you, easily digestible, follow along, and I'm looking forward to getting to work for you. So with that being said, first things first, Jacob just mentioned it. Hey, as much as I'm sure you all love compliance, you're here for the CE as well. So we'll make sure we get all that out to you. You don't have to worry about it one single bit. We'll get that CE out to you. And of course, that's going to the email that you registered with. And many of you know us, you've heard of us. We're kind of we're a good company out here, but Rectangle Health, we're more than good. I'm being humble and modest, but we work with everybody. So maybe you're already a current client of ours. Welcome. Thank you for being a customer of ours. We love keeping you safe. And if you're just someone who's trying to learn and you're not actually a client of ours, just know this is what we do here at Rectangle Health. We educate. We don't necessarily even need to sell. We believe education is what's made us the leaders in this industry. And I believe that educating you all will help you make smart decisions at the end of the day. So yeah, we're a compliance company, but this is about the education, so that way I can equip you to make sure you choose and act wisely around your own practice. So we're going to go over a bunch of different things. We work with hundreds and hundreds of societies and groups and technology partners, IT groups, you name it. We work with everybody. No one really has as broad a reach as we do. We know what we're doing. And for that reason, I'm gonna lay it out for you real simple. Let's start with what we're gonna talk about on our agenda. First, we're gonna talk about, of course, the basics of HIPAA. We're gonna go over some of the basic safeguards that you can do. And before we get too far into everything, I'm gonna put you through the government required, our version of it, the risk assessment. It's important, you gotta do this every year, but it's important you know where you stand. I have found that opening your eyes early will really drive your need for engagement throughout the rest of the presentation. So looking forward to taking you through that risk assessment. We'll go through the basics. We're going to talk about the number one thing that really affects HIPAA. 95% of everything that deals with HIPAA is cyber breaches and cyber attacks. We're going to talk about ransomware, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about how do we respond. That's the incident response plan, the emergency plan that you need to have in place, different than your OSHA one. And we'll close it out with some simple 20 tips to protect your practice and give you a couple free offers and some free help to help you manage your compliance post-webinar. So not too bad, packed agenda. We're definitely gonna always run right up into the bottom of the hour, coming up the following hour. And before we get started, we are talking law. So of course, I do have a disclaimer I need everyone to read and understand. So give me a favor, give this a quick read. Perfect, you get that? Just a joke, nothing important was actually written there. I hate when people, I love when they do the fine print on the commercials and they read them all fast, but that's kind of what HIPAA is like though. It's a lot of fine print, a lot of technicalities, and it's very hard for us to figure out what applies to me and what doesn't at my own practice that I'm working with. And so my real disclaimer, the golden rule I'm going to start with is that there is no one size fits all compliance solution. The way you manage compliance at your practice is completely unique to you. Yeah, we have a lot of the same rules and responsibilities, but how we execute all of this at the practice level, the players that are involved, the tools and systems and technology partners and business associates that we have is not the same as the next practice. So this is going to be a general webinar. I'm definitely going to provide some help to you guys all post-webinar on how to get individualized, customized help around your practice. So it's not a surprise that we have so many people here today. HIPAA's confusing. Let me give you an example here real fast. This, I'm gonna pull it up here real quick for you. There it is. This is the actual simplified version of the HIPAA law we're all trying to adhere to. And simplified version. Let me scroll down here, give you an example here. So this is 115 pages, 3 columns each of detailed legalese. Now, I don't know about you, I don't have a law degree. And I can promise you, if you ever have trouble sleeping at night, this is a great 115 pages that you could dive into. You'll sleep like a baby. But the reality is, I'm talking to my doctors, my owners, my business owners. How many times have you read this? Are you delegating the management of this entire legal document to, say, an office manager? My heroes, my personal heroes, my favorite people on earth, the office managers who wear a million hats. How were they trained? How were they taught how to handle all this difficult compliance and legalese? It's very hard to do. So it's very important. We're giving our team the tools. And if you're on that team, it's important you have the tools to be able to say, hey, I have and know what I need to know to do a great job, or else we got to raise our hand and say, doctor, I need more. And maybe that'll come to light as we go through this presentation today. So what we're trying to do is, my question really is, think about it. How do you do HIPAA around there? Many people that we work with are falling in the casual side of things that you see here on your left. Loose training schedule. We do it. The guy comes in. I don't know where he's been since COVID. You got no designated compliance officer, someone who's running point on this day in, day out. Maybe you have a binder, maybe you don't. Maybe that binder has dust on it and cobwebs. You haven't customized, you haven't updated it. When things go wrong, when it hits the fan, do you have an emergency plan? And not an OSHA one, a HIPAA one. And these practices are defined by the term, we do our best. We use common sense. Well, unfortunately, your best will not save you from the worst of HIPAA. Well, I should say your best common sense at the end of the day. We do need to make sure we're taking the mindset of moving into the formal and secure side of things. Everything's documented. Employees are trained on time from day one, right? Everything in our binders up to date, written policies, procedures. We have plans, what to do in emergencies. And generally, we are going to have experts or lawyers or insurance and things protecting us beyond what our office manager or designated compliance officer can handle for us. So let's make sure that you all feel by the end of this, or in the steps we're going to take after this, that you feel formal when it comes to your HIPAA program and you feel secure due to that. So let's talk about some of these basics here real fast. The law, 101, right? HIPAA law itself was started in 1996. That was part of a bigger healthcare reform that was going on. But really, HIPAA has several different parts to it. There's some about insurance portability, and there's different parts about it. The part you're worried about is the part that's protecting PHI, protected health information. And this whole program is administered by the Office of Civil Rights underneath the Department of Health and Human Services. Many people didn't even know that. And this is a civil right. It is your patient's rights to have their information protected. It is your duty under the law to protect their rights and make sure you protect their information. And as the world's evolved, so has the way we need to protect this information. So has even the shape of the PHI, the information itself, right? We live in a digital world these days. So in 2013, the law was modernized with the omnibus rule, which really added that little small e in front of the PHI, the electronic protected health information. It modernized the law to address modern threats and situations that we're dealing with today. So, and it really is, that information you have in your practice is extremely, extremely valuable. That hackers want it. They want it. Of course they want it, right? You're going to get hit with, say, ransomware. This is an actual clip of an actual ransomware that had happened. And if you don't know what ransomware is, I'll say it real fast. It's pretty straightforward. Like it sounds like somebody gets on your computer by somebody opening the wrong email, clicking the wrong link, and now your whole computer program, all your computers are frozen, and all they're going to do is say, hey, if you don't pay us, we're not going to free up your information, your computers, excuse me. And if you don't pay us, we're going to make our money by selling this information we took off your computers out there on the internet. It's tough. It's a tough world out here. We're going to dive into this further, but that information that you're sitting on is worth so much money. And so let's define what that information is that's valuable. PHI, protected health information. Okay, that is everything a cyber criminal, an identity theft would want to have in order to steal your identity and get away scot-free. I mean, think about it. Your medical record has everything: your name, your social, your date of birth, your next of kin, you name it, credit card information. It has a medical file as the ideal package a thief would want to steal. So that's why we're getting into this. And it's important you never lose sight of the term protected health information, because that is 100% what HIPAA is about. PHI, and how do we protect it? And this stuff is happening every single day. The problem is it's a little out of sight, out of mind for many of you, right? If the doctor next door to you got breached, he's not going to come brag about it, that he got breached, right? He's not going to brag that the HIPAA police came in there and fined him and audited him. He's not going to brag about that. It's not a good thing. So most people don't realize that this stuff is happening. Whereas stolen medical records, I mean, they're worth a lot. Let me give you a quick example here. I love examples, brings things real. Everyone's heard of Becker's. So let's use Becker's here real fast. Patient medical records sell for $1,000 on the dark web. This is happening. It's worth a lot of money. Think for a second, how many patient records you have in your system over there? It's that now you see why your data is probably the most valuable thing in that practice, more valuable than the business itself. It's the data. And people don't realize, because it's worth so much, this is happening every single day. Let me give you an example. And any of you guys, I encourage you to do this on your own in your own time. Type in breach portal HHS inside of Google. Your top result, most likely, don't click on the ads, will be the link directly to the Department of Health and Human Services breach portal. Okay, and this is bringing this to real life here real fast. This is real life you see. So first of all, this website is public information. All the practices that are reporting breaches and going through the whole process of resolving that, answering the auditors, this is where they're going to be listed. So first things first, let me just show you. Let me scroll down here to the bottom. We have 100 practices just here on this first page, and this is only going back to the beginning of November. exactly almost 2 months ago. So we have 100 practices report breaches in just 2 months. And look at this: hacking, network server, hacking, hacking. We can go all day. Unauthorized access, email, hacking, other. It doesn't stop, okay? And this is happening in every single state. You're not immune. It's happening to providers just like you, just like it's happening to the business associates that you're working with and sharing that PHI with. It's very important you understand that this is happening to big, huge companies, Proline Surgeons, First Source Bank, Jackson's Children's Municipality Clinic. It's happening to big groups, but it also happens to small providers as well. No one is immune to this happening to them. The problem is that the small practices are the ones they want the most. They're the ones that have the least sophisticated security around on their computer and networks. And the problem for you is you're the least one that can afford the breach. You can't afford to be down for days. You can't afford to be audited and fined hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. It's very crazy to see. So this, my friends, is happening every single day. Let's do everything we can to keep you off of this. But I am also going to go into the process of what happens if you do have a breach, because there's nothing you could do to 100% prevent a breach. It's important we do everything we can to prevent it from happening. But if it does, we have to limit its impact, its financial risk on our business, and everything else that comes with that. So that is what we're here to really help solve for here today. So we're going to talk about really some of these common vulnerabilities that you're facing. And if you end up on that breach page, they're going to come in there and audit you. They're going to come in there and audit you. And they're going to want to know, and let me highlight a couple things here for you. First things first, tier 3 and tier 4, okay, have these 2 words in it that it starts out with, which is willful neglect. This is very important. First of all, I want to point out tier 3. You did not fix something that you were aware of within 30 days, okay? This is why they want you to stay on top of your training, why they make you do risk assessments every year. You can't say, I didn't know I had to do that. And then if you really just make no effort at all to fix the violations, and you're just sitting there enjoying your life, not worrying about HIPAA, and you're just, HIPAA, I don't care about HIPAA. Well, you're gonna be in the worst category. $50,000 fine per violation, up to a maximum of $1.5 million. And I don't want you to fall into some of the common misconceptions that lead you to having this problem in the first place, okay? Some of those really look like, if you said this, I'm talking to you, you're at risk. Oh, my IT firm handles my HIPAA compliance. I'm good. First and foremost, we're going to dive into it further in greater detail, but there is no IT firm that handles all of your HIPAA responsibilities. They may help you with a portion of a piece of your responsibilities, right? Some of the technical sides of things, your firewalls, your virus protection, things of that nature. But they're not going to be responsible for executing your breach notification rules, reporting this to the government, responding to all this. And I promise you one thing, they're not paying those fines for you either. So don't let that fool you. The same with, oh, my practice management software is HIPAA compliant. Of course it is. They're a business associate. They have to run HIPAA compliantly as well. That has nothing to do with you. And we'll get into business associates here soon. One of the misconceptions is my general liability policy will protect me from this stuff. It won't. In fact, you're going to need a standalone cyber breach or cybersecurity policy to protect yourself. This is 2024. Yeah, general liability policies and malpractice policies are required, but the numbers show you're going to need an insurance policy, a cyber breach policy, more likely to use those than either of the other 2 that are required. So in my opinion, cyber insurance is a requirement in 2024. And the last but not least, my office manager is on top of it for me. Hey, doctor, I appreciate that faith in your office manager. I want you to go golfing all day while that office manager is working. They don't want that, but go golf, do what you got to do. But if you really want to have that peace of mind, equip your office managers with the tools to do this the right way for you, then you can really live carefree. So there's definitely going to be areas that put us at risk, whether it's non-compliance, we're going to have data breach risk. This is going to lead to financial and reputational risk. All of this stuff is happening, and it's important that we start getting you protected against that. So now we're going to take our first step into getting you there. We're going to take our first step. So I am going to help all of you right now go through your HIPAA risk analysis with us. So HIPAA requires you to do a full-blown risk analysis every single year. Okay, it's literally in the law. Conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of potential risks. Okay, to your PHI. This is a really crazy and a difficult, long process. At Rectangle Health, we have simplified it a little bit and created our own version of the risk analysis, a shortened risk assessment. Okay, now why do they require these? Again, every year by law, you're supposed to do this. Okay, and then from there, the whole point of having you do it is so that way you can fix the issues that you find before they come back to get you. That's the whole idea here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to help you complete your HIPAA risk assessment for this year. Okay, this is going to kick off a 23-page report that is going to break down by category, how you scored, what questions did you answer, what did you do wrong, or where could you work to improve. And I'm even going to have my compliance professionals happily walk you through that report and make sure you truly understand it, right? Think of this as an X-ray or an MRI. It doesn't do any good to just go get one done and not have a professional look at the results and give you an analysis and tell you what to do about it. That's what this is all about. So if you are the doctor, you should get this done for the practice. I only technically need one for each practice. But if you want to go through the process, please go ahead. Just when we call you to book your appointment to review it, just make sure you dedicate one person to handle that. And that person should be the doctor because they hold all that liability. And the next person down is that office manager or that dedicated compliance officer. Whoever's handling compliance of the practice, do this risk assessment. Everyone else, if you don't handle it, if you're the only one from your practice on here, get it done. It's a great indicator of what you know and what you don't know. And if there's multiple people in the practice getting this done right now, feel free to go through it, but don't submit it. Just submit one for the proper person. So I've put the link in here. Jacob is actually sharing the link to this. It's rectanglehealth.com/RA. Pretty easy. rectanglehealth.com/RA. That is going to drive you to a landing page. Looks similar to this. This isn't the actual landing page, but looks similar to this. Oops. About that. All right, and now fill out all your information. Name, first, last. Put your doctor's name in there. Put your practice name in there. Okay. Put the phone number where I reach you at in there, or the main practice number in there. Now, I want to take a quick second to point out this email section. As you see here, it's saying, hey, my email address is already taken. That's because I've done a risk assessment in the past, and maybe your practice has or you have with us before. We've done almost 1 million of these over the years, so there's a good chance you're in our system. If it says your email address is already taken, right before that @ symbol, throw in like a 999, okay? That my team will know you put that in there specifically for this reason, and we'll delete it on the back end, so that way you can get everything associated together. But in order to move forward, it can't say that. Code optional, go ahead and put webinar in there for me. And I'm going to go ahead and get started while you guys submit this, but get here. I'm going to walk you through these questions here real fast. Give me 1 second here. Link. There we go. All right, let's get this thing going. All right. Question number 1. I'm gonna actually read these off in layman's terms, make it a little bit easier. So follow along, answer quick. Listen, it's not pass or fail. I'm not reporting this to the government on your behalf. Be as honest as possible. So, and if you don't know, click uncertain. I will provide help, again, individual customized help to help you get this done and explain it to you and clarify it. So don't worry about it, answer correctly. All right, number 1, do you have policies and procedures there in your office that address how to protect PHI? Do you have that? Do you have a HIPAA binder? I don't care if there's dust on it. Do you even have it? Yes or no? Number 2, when's the last time you updated it? Be honest. 12 months ago, lately, or we've never updated it. Number 3, do you have a formal program to identify and fix the vulnerabilities that are found through this risk assessment? And are you documenting everything you fix in that binder for the last 6 years? Yes or no? Question number 4, do you have these specific policies in your binder? Workstation use, acceptable use, and sanction policies. Yes or no, uncertain. Number 5, do you have a policy and procedure that defines how you monitor and review system activity on computers? Number 6, have you designated a compliance security officer, a designated point person, and do they truly fully understand what's required of them in that role? Yes, no, or uncertain. Number 7, do you maintain records to identify which employees have access to different facilities, information, and electronic devices? You have that documented. Number 8 is about business associates and the agreements that you have with them. Do you have business associate agreements in place between all of your business associates and yourself? You should have one signed, they should have one signed. And if you do have that, number 9, does that business associate agreement have an indemnification clause in it? Yes, no, or uncertain. Number 10, do you do background checks on your employees before they have access to PHI? No, smaller practices typically don't, but it's a good question, good practice to have. Number 11, when was the last time you put your team through HIPAA training? Within the last 12 months, over 12 months ago, or you haven't done it? And number 12 is, how was that training conducted? Did someone come to your office? Did you buy something? Did you take an online course? Or do you not do any training at all? Hope that's not the case. Number 13, in the event of emergency, do you have a policy and procedure that's going to define who does what and their specific roles in the event of emergency? Do you have that policy and procedure? Number 14, does that policy and procedure also prioritize system recovery actions? So you can restore things in the right order, systems, applications, electronic devices. Do you have that in your incident response? Number 15, when you terminate an employee or a business associate and stop doing business with them, do you have a formal policy and procedure in that binder that explains the process that you go through to make sure that you cleanly sever that relationship? Number 16, does your binder have records of everything you've ever done for HIPAA over the last 6 years? Yes, no, uncertain. Number 17 is saying, when your employees go through HIPAA training, they need to sign an employee acknowledgement saying they completed it. Are all those employee acknowledgements attesting that they've done their HIPAA training? Are those in your HIPAA binder? Number 18, when you have a breach, HIPAA has a thing called the breach notification rule that you must execute. Do you understand all of the requirements in that breach notification rule? Very difficult to do, but if so, congratulations. Number 19, do you have a policy and procedure? Basically, in your binder, have you defined and assigned each employee like a unique ID, an employee number, something that identifies them when they're using your systems? Yes, no, or ask IT. All right, number 20 deals with backup, how you do your data backup. How are you currently doing that data backup for that PHI? Do you have an offsite solution like cloud? Do you do it inside your practice management software? Do you do it on-site? Do you have a physical hard drive? And that data backup you do have, however you're keeping it. Number 21, how many different sets do you maintain? Do you have multiple data sets, one for every day of the week? Do you only keep one? You back it up daily and you replace it every day? Are you unsure? Number 22, do you have a policy and procedure in your binder that defines how exactly you're going to restore an exact copy of all your data in the event of a breach? Right? If your computers got wiped today, do you have a policy that explains how to restore all that data from your data backup? Yes, no, ask IT. Number 23, have you ever actually tested that recovery in the event of emergency? Have you ever had to test how long it would take to restore all your systems and your data? Yes, no, or ask IT. Number 24, does your practice have audit controls that pay attention and watch employee activity on the systems? Basically, think of it as sometimes when you go to a web browser and you try to go to ESPN.com and you find out your company has blocked you from going to that site. They don't want you to know the score. That would be a great example of that. Number 25, do you have a policy and procedure that defines how you protect passwords, digital passwords? Number 26, do you use encryption, aka email encryption, when you're emailing out PHI? Do you have email encryption? Number 27, are you using email scanning tools and software to guard against bad emails? Yes, no, or ask IT. Number 28, who in the practice is responsible for making sure that the firewalls, antivirus software, all the software applications, the data backup is happening? Who's responsible for doing all that? Is that the IT provider? Is that the office manager? My hero? Is it somebody else? All right, number 29, if you use mobile devices like like cell phones for email or texting of PHI, I want you to click false. If you do use them. If you don't use cell phones in the course of your work with PHI, click true. All right, number 30, if you have a laptop that stores PHI, I want you to click false. If you don't keep any PHI on your laptop, I want you to click true. Number 31, do you somewhere in your binder or your practice have a list of all the physical system devices and computers and everything that has PHI on it, right? If we have 5 computers in the office that all have PHI, do we have that listed somewhere? Can we tell each of those pieces of equipment apart? Yes, no, or ask IT. Do you have a policy and procedure, number 32, that defines how your employees access your facility in the event of a disaster? Yes, no, or uncertain. Do you have any specific policies or procedures that talk and define remote access to information, right? This was big during COVID. A lot of remote work, a lot of telehealth, a lot of things like that. Do you have a policy or procedure that defines how to keep your computer safe? Yes, no, or ask IT. Do you have a policy that defines how to dispose of electronic devices once you're done with them, right? If I want to throw my laptop away, do I have a policy procedure that defines how I wipe it, clean it, and throw it away? Yes, no, or uncertain. Home stretch team. Couple quick questions. PCI compliance is very similar to HIPAA compliance. It's about protecting financial information versus health information. So we're going to ask you a couple quick questions about that. How do you take credit cards right now? Do you do that in a credit card terminal? You do it integrated into your practice management software? Use QuickBooks? You have some sort of other gateway? And with PCI compliance, you must take the self-assessment questionnaire every 12 months and attest that you are PCI compliant. Have you done that in the last 12 months? Yes or no? Or uncertain. Number 37, have you performed a scan of your IP address within the last quarter? It's called vulnerability testing. Have you had that scan done? Do you have that report? Yes, no, uncertain. Number 38, do you have a copy of your PCI certificate, right? If you've done all this, you should have a copy of it. Do you have one? Yes, no, or ask IT. Now, number 39 is more about just guiding my coaches on what to help you with, right? When they call you, they're going to help you with their HIPAA. They're going to help you walk you through your report. They're going to make sure you're clear on everywhere you're falling short on HIPAA. But also, we're checking if you want any help about your credit card system, integrating into your system, if you need help understanding if it's compliant, functionality, if you're worried you're paying too much, if you need any help, if you want us to take a free look for you, just click yes. All right, number 40 deals with cyber insurance. Do you currently have any insurance that covers your practice in the case of a ransomware attack, a HIPAA or PCI fine, loss of business due to those, or any other expenses related to a data breach? Do you have that comprehensive cyber insurance policy? Yes. Do you have a rider? Do you not have one at all? Or are you just unsure? Number 41, how many patient records are you responsible for? Most practices are going to be upwards of 5K. Number 42, how many locations do you have? Just the one? Do you have two, or are you multiple locations? This is important because it, again, helps us guide how to help you. And how many years have you been in business? 5 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 or more. Quick question on OSHA. How do you currently conduct your OSHA training? Do you have someone come to your office? Do you do the training yourself? Do you do it online? Or do you do nothing? All right, last two. Do you have COVID-19 employee training? Have you created a COVID-19 safety plan? So this still exists. It's pretty much being phased out. So just go ahead, yes or no, that one. And when was the last time you conducted an OSHA inspection of your practice? Did you do that in the last 6 months, last year? Has it been a while? All right, once you get all of those answered, I want you to go ahead and click submit. I have hundreds and hundreds of people doing and clicking submit at the exact same time. So bear with the system. I promise it's going to work. You don't need to keep clicking. It's going to happen. What's going to happen next is it's going to show you a score, but that's all it's going to give you is the score. Okay. We have the full-blown report. Again, it's 24 pages, breaks everything down piece by piece. We'll help you walk through that. Okay. So I need the doctor and ideally the compliance officer to sit through that presentation. And I call it a presentation. It's more of a conversation about what you're doing based on your responses. So we're going to go through it page by page, help you out. So I need the doctor and whoever's running compliance to practice on that call. And just know, doctor, if you do it the right way, if you listen to us, you pay attention, it's the last time you need to sit through one of those calls again, because your office manager will take care of it from there. They'll be equipped, they'll have the tools. So team, I have an incredible team here of compliance advisors that are going to give you a call. After this webinar is over, later today, tomorrow, we're going to give you a call. We're going to let you know, hey, we have your risk assessment here. We want to schedule some time to walk through it. When's the doctor and office manager available? And we'll get it booked when you're available. But I promise you one thing, it will be worth the time. It will be the best hour of education you've ever gotten, even better than this one, because the hour my team is going to give you is going to be direct and specific to your practice instead of general and broad. All right. Well, with that, congratulations. You've done your HIPAA risk assessment portion A. We'll handle portion B over the upcoming days. So let's keep this webinar moving along. Get a quick sip of coffee. All right. Let's get into the basics. So HIPAA starts with privacy. Protect my information, the HIPAA privacy rule. So always a little old of a cartoon, a little bit pixelated, but I still love it because it's kind of the way it feels when you don't know HIPAA, right? It's like, according to your HIPAA release form, I can't share anything with you. I mean, it really feels like that sometimes. A couple of years ago, Tom Brady made the joke. He was getting ready for the Super Bowl. They were asking him about his elbow. And he's like, I don't think I can tell you guys that. It'd be a HIPAA violation. So HIPAA finally made headlines for something good and positive. But HIPAA is very confusing. People are right away, what can I share? What can't I share? Because Terry, all you're doing is telling me to keep it close to the chest, keep it under lock and key. What can we share? So very specifically, the general rule is you must obtain an individual's written authorization for any use or disclosure of their PHI. Okay, it needs to be in writing. It needs to be very in specific terms. Okay, think every time someone comes into your office, you have them sign a notice of privacy practices, outlining what their rights are and what you're going to be doing with their information and protecting it. That's every single time, right? So that's what that is. Let's get a little bit more specific. So, of course, you're allowed, when it comes to the individuals themselves, yes, it's mandatory. If they request access or accounting and they want to see anything you've ever sent them or done for them or any of their medical records, you have to give it to them by law. Also, you're allowed to share it in the normal treatment and healthcare and payment of getting that done, right? So doctor to doctor, obtaining payment, you know, basic any type of care coordination, right? All of those things are natural. Now, the patient can agree or object to getting their family involved, which is very interesting, right? It can be very informal too, right? I may have a hair restoration procedure and I don't want my wife to know. I don't think that's going to work, but that's the first thing I came up with. But bottom line is I can informally tell them, hey, don't share that with my wife, and they're not allowed to. So it's very interesting that I have the power to control all my information, regardless of my marital status and any other relationships. So there's always going to be an incident too, right? Where, you know, people are going to have access to this information, but it needs to be reasonable, right? The golden rule there is the minimum necessary rule. You know, if I got to have PHI out, it should be as little as possible. A great example of that would be, I remember I've been to practices in the past before I knew anything about HIPAA, and I'd sign in on the sign-in sheet and say, what's your name? What are you here? What procedure are you here for? You know, that's not allowed. You don't need to have me write what procedure I'm in there for so everyone else can see, right? It should be name, time of appointment, and maybe doctor, but that's about it, right? And also things of like when you're walking through a hospital, we've all been there, unfortunately, and you're going to visit people in the actual hospital, they have their charts and their very specific PHI and medication all hanging on the wall. You know, that's okay. You know, it's not like it's broadcasted out there. So minimum necessary rule. So let's talk about what's actually required when it comes to HIPAA. So there's 3 specific sections of HIPAA, okay? There's the administrative safeguards, the technical safeguards, and the physical safeguards. So the administrative, think all the basically the policies and procedures, all the paperwork, all the stuff that the government requires to do. Technical, think of all the digital stuff, right? Firewalls, digital stuff, all that. And then there's physical, which are locks and keys and doors and hardware. So administrative, technical, physical. These are the 3 basic types. So with that being said, let's move into, so when it comes to your policies and procedures, okay, let me just put this out there. Your HIPAA binder itself. 3 things. You need to have a binder, okay? It can be digital, it can be physical. It needs to be customized to your practice initially, and then from there, it needs to be updated. That needs to happen over and over when it comes to policies and procedures. Let's dive a lot into policies and procedures, but first, let's do one of our polling questions here, all right? Jacob, take us away on this polling question, would you?
All right, let's do it.
So the poll's going to open up. Which of these is not one of the 3 key HIPAA safeguards? Is it physical safeguards, office safeguards, technical safeguards, or administrative safeguards? Let's see how well of a job I'm doing explaining. Let's see how well of a job you're doing paying attention. Which one of the 3 is not one of the 3 key HIPAA safeguards?
Give everyone a few more seconds here. All right, looks like we had 23% say physical safeguards, 64% say office safeguards, 6% technical, and 10% administrative.
Very good. More than half of you are doing really good. The correct answer is B, office safeguards. Remember, the physical stuff and the technical stuff and the administrative stuff is all happening within the office. So close, but 54% of you are doing really good. I expect that number to be higher. Next question. All right. So let's dive into some of the specifics. So I'm going to go back to what I was just describing when it came to policies and procedures. Okay, this is very important. This is 101, but a lot of people don't really get what this looks like. You need to have a HIPAA binder. It needs to be customized. It needs to be updated. Let me give you a visual example of that. Okay, I'm going to open up our portal itself. So I'm going to show you guys Office Safe because I want to give you an example of the way a binder should look like. So I'm going to log in here. Just know if you guys were clients of Office Safe or Bridge Compliance, as assumed to be named, every single employee has to have a login and will receive one. And that's because every employee has to have access to the binder. They have to know the rules. They have to be able to see all the policies and procedures. So I'm going to log in here real quick. And actually, let me shrink down the things we don't need right now. We're just focusing on our HIPAA binder here. So I'm going to go into the HIPAA binder, and the documents and policies is our digital binder. Here at Office Safe, we do everything digital because we love the environment, one, but also these laws update all the time. Things need to be changed, and digital binder makes that very possible. We're able to update these policies for you, and that way you don't have to print off a whole new thing. So for example, so here are the policies and procedures. You are required to have all of these. And if one doesn't apply to you, you need to write a policy explaining why it doesn't apply to you as well. So you need to have all these. And in COVID, they actually had just added like 3 new ones. You know, something as simple as the password security policy, right? That pretty much, so before I even get into password security policy, let me continue to break this down and make it very, very simple. Your policies and procedures are basically the who, what, when, where, how, why of how you're executing HIPAA. Okay, that's what it is. So when we go to the password security policy, who's in charge of making sure the passwords get changed? How difficult do they need to be? When do they need to be done? Right? The who, what, when, where, how, why of everything is defined in that password security policy when it comes to changing passwords. So you need to have that for each one of these. And this is why I said at the very beginning, my first disclaimer, there is no one size fits all compliance solution because you have to document and customize each one of these unique to your own, which is a problem sometimes of buying these templated binders, like say from the ADA, is there a boilerplate, you got to fill in the blanks, but you're not a pro. How do you know if you're doing it the right way, right? So at Office Safe, we'll help you get all these policies and procedures in place. And I just will, as I wrap up the policies and procedures conversation, just know as they change or alter, you have to keep record of everything for 6 years, even the ones that you've changed. So just think about that. Does your binder right now have 6 years worth of information in it? All right, so that is what a digital binder is. So gang, if you have a binder and it's got dust or you don't know where it's at and you know there's not 6 years worth of information in here and you don't have all those different policies and procedures on it, there's a lot that can go wrong with that binder. Make sure you point that out to my compliance advisors so they can really point you in the right direction on how to fix those gaps. All right, let's move on to this here. All right, let's move on to talk business associate agreements here real fast. So you are a covered entity, okay? You are covered by HIPAA. And HIPAA obviously is about protecting PHI. But in the normal course of business, you are sharing that PHI with your own business associates that you work with, okay? Now, let me give you an example of one that's the easiest for everyone. Your practice management software. Almost every single one of you have a practice management software. I'm a patient, I give you my PHI, you type it right into that software, often in the cloud. Now they have that information as well. And your IT provider who's handling your data backup might have it as well. So right there initially, right when you type my information into your system, 2 business associates already have all my PHI. Okay, these covered entities have to follow HIPAA as well. They have to do everything that you're doing, but you're not there in their office. You don't know if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing or not, right? So it's super important that you identify who these people are, which business associates that you actually have, so that way you can get a business associate agreement in place with them. And before I go to that, let me give you an example. There's nothing that hits like the headlines, and HIPAA knows it. HIPAA can't afford to audit every single one of you. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to scare you. So they're going to go in there and audit some people that have issues. So for example, North Memorial Healthcare fined $1.55 million. And let me show you the two reasons they gave for doing that. One, failing to implement a business associate agreement with a major contractor. Okay, this is exactly what we're talking about. I'm about to go into business associate agreements. If you work with them, you got to have an agreement in place that says, hey, you're going to do your part in protecting this PHI. Your practice management software, your data provider, they all need an agreement in place. They didn't have one with a major contractor. That contractor, that business associate, is the one who got breached, by the way. That's how this came to light. Second thing they got fined for, failing to institute an organization-wide risk analysis to address risk and vulnerabilities. I feel like you guys just did that. All of you guys just did a risk assessment with me. Now you got to review it, right, to address those vulnerabilities. But North Memorial skipped both of that. If they would have just did their risk assessment, you saw it didn't take us more than 10 minutes. And I asked them, do you have business associate agreements in place? They would have answered no. They would have sat down with one of my advisors. My advisor would have said, well, you don't have this, you need to get these in place ASAP. They would have helped get one created and saved them from all of this trouble. $1.5 million worth of trouble. Who needs to have these, right? You know, outside billing services, your practice management softwares, you know, your cloud storage provider, people handling your email marketing, right? There's a lot of people that need to be that this business associate agreement applies to, just like there's some that aren't, right? You don't need the janitor to be signing anything. Your employees are part of the covered entity, so they're not a business associate agreement, right? Hospitals you work in, financial institutions that process claims, that doesn't apply to this. It's the people you're sharing the PHI with specifically. Sometimes there are people who don't need a business associate agreement, right? We just talked about a number of them who don't actually need them. And the key here is, does your agreement that you have with your business associate, does it have an indemnification clause? This is the part of the agreement that financially protects you. It's a part of the agreement that says, hey, if you have a breach and you get fined, you're going to get the one that's holding the bag. You're the one that's responsible for that financially. And that's to protect you, doctor, to let you know, hey, I did my part. My practices run compliantly. My team is trained. I have my business associate agreements in place. If they get breached, it's going to be on them. North Memorial was fined $1.5 million. Watch how I could have saved them $1.5 million with our Office Safe, our bridge compliance product. So I'll go right back to the portal I had showed you guys. Okay, I'm gonna go back into, instead of policies and procedures, I'm gonna head into the business associates tab. And I'm gonna click manage my business associates. Here's how we save them $1.5 million. They would have come in here, clicked create business associate, put in all those details, right, of the different business associate. Now they have the agreement created. You can then send it out directly here from the portal. You know the date you created the agreement, you know the date that you sent it out, and when they execute it and sign it, you're going to have that date, and you're going to also have a copy of that executed agreement in your binder, which you're always supposed to have, right? Even for a minimum of 6 years. And of course, this agreement that's been executed on page 5 has that indemnification clause that's going to protect you and would have protected North Memorial as well and their $1.5 million. So team, this can cost you a ton of money, millions of dollars of money, can put you out of business, but we can solve it in 30 to 60 seconds. So time for another polling question. I think that's what that means, Jacob. So let's do the polling question. So everyone out there in America, which of the following is not considered a business associate? Is it A, your landlord, B, your IT provider, C, your software provider, or D, all of the above? Give a few seconds for you to get your answers in.
All right. Looks like we had 75% say your landlord, 0% your IT provider, 5% your software provider, and 19% all the above.
So congratulations to the 70+% of you who got that correct. It is your landlord. And I will have to say, after years of doing this, I don't think we've ever, Jacob, gotten a 0% on any answer. So that was just, I noticed that. And all of you out there who always think all of the above is the shortcut to getting degrees, not this time, not this time. D's don't get degrees. All right, moving on. That was polling question number 2. Good job, you guys. We're gonna keep getting better and better. Let's talk about HIPAA training. Everyone knows a little bit about HIPAA training. So there's a couple things I need you to know about HIPAA training. We all know it exists, but the things you need to know about it is very specific. HIPAA needs 3 things out of you. We need it to be modern and relevant information. So don't come bring that HIPAA CD that you've had for 12 years that you're doing HIPAA training on. It needs to be done every single year, period. And 3, every employee that goes through that training needs to sign the employee acknowledgement, and that acknowledgement needs to be in your binder. Again, your binder is that guide when HIPAA. If HIPAA were to walk in there and audit you, they're not going to say a word to you. You don't need to say a word. The reason being, again, is your HIPAA binder is a record of everything you're doing, how you would do it, and everything that has been done. We know everything already, right? So you need to have, every time you've had employees last 6 years do any training, I should have an employee acknowledgement in there, right? So there's a lot of ways to get your training done. One of my first bits of advice would be to remind you that employees need to be trained on day 1. They get access to PHI on day 1. I know a lot of people who have a guy that comes into their practice once a year. Well, when you have a new employee start in January and the guy doesn't come in until April or May, they're going untrained for 4 months. You're out of compliance. So it's important that they have the ability to do this right away. So I'm going to show you guys, for example, a modern way of being able to get it done. I'll go to Office Safe University. I'm going to click on HIPAA training. Now I have 2 different categories here. I have the HIPAA officer training, which is my office manager or whoever I run point on my practice. They have different training. This is going to be a 2-hour course. It's going to also count as CE for those who want additional CE, but it's going to train them in greater detail on what they need to know to be that point person for you. Whereas everyone else in the practice who doesn't need CE or doesn't have that much responsibilities when it comes to compliance other than adhering to it, they're just going to take 3 simple quizzes after they watch these simple training videos. And our program tells you when these things need to be done. You see this little red exclamation point on the HIPAA training. It means somebody's overdue to getting their training done, right? So I can always go in and look at my users, which are essentially my team, and I can go in there and see, hey, for example, hey, Mike Buchanan, as the red X here, he's overdue on his HIPAA compliance and OSHA compliance because he hasn't done it since 2020. Right, for example, right? So you're going to be able to keep tabs and manage all of your employees. The day something's overdue, Office Safe will alert you to go get it done, right? You got to have something that's intuitive that helps you manage all of this stuff. You see, it's a lot of stuff going on. So it's very easy for us to manage this training at the end of the day when it comes to the HIPAA training. And also, of course, going back to our binder, documents and policies, I have a tab, which would be a tab in your physical binder, a tab here, my employee acknowledgements, where I keep record of everything they have to sign off on every single year. Yes, I've signed off on completing my training. Yes, I've signed off on understanding the policies and procedures. So that's one thing I was trying to mention earlier during the policies and procedures section is every year, every employee has to sign a document saying, I've read them all and I understand them all. And then the other document they sign is, I did my training and I did it this year. So those 2 documents are happening every single year for every single employee. So stop right now and ask yourself, do you have that for every one of your employees for the last 6 years? Okay, these are things that you can't go back and fix, but it does matter that you start doing it the right way starting today, right? Remember that term, willful neglect. We can't act like we didn't know anymore. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is going to cost us a lot of money. Put a little bit of work in, just a little bit, create some healthy habits around that practice. I like to call it a culture of compliance. And then everything gets real easy to manage, especially when you have tools like Bridge Compliance and Office Safe. So let's keep moving on. While we're talking HIPAA training, I do want to just touch on OSHA for a split second. It's kind of hard to separate the two sometimes in our modern environment. So, just remember that I'm not going to spend a ton of time on OSHA because I know this is not what we're here for, but I want to make sure you're clear on what your OSHA training requirements actually are. Every single person in your practice has to go through the COVID-19 training still. They still have to do bloodborne pathogens training, hazard comm training, and infection control. And they need to do these every year, just like you were thinking when it comes to HIPAA. Okay, so very easy again to be able to manage that inside the portal. Instead of this HIPAA tab, we can go to the OSHA tab. Oh, excuse me, we can go to the Office Safe University OSHA training, and you'll see the 4 trainings that everyone needs to have there. All of these are CE, except for the COVID-19. They're all super interactive. They're good, high quality, everything you want from CE, which is to basically not put me to sleep so I can get it done, to be honest. We want to learn some stuff too, of course. But all the OSHA training's right there. Employees get it done. It's documented. It's in your binder. You're good to go. So, and I'll want to point out in California specifically, you guys also have a little bit more to do. Cal OSHA is super difficult. You have many of you also outside of California have state-specific OSHA requirements that apply to you as well, that are in addition to the federal standards. So stay on top of that. Definitely stay on top of that. So I want to help you with this a little bit. This isn't an OSHA webinar. So just know post webinar, I'm going to email you guys all out an OSHA readiness checklist. Okay. Help you be able to do your own little self audit, your own OSHA inspection, similar to the way I had you do a HIPAA risk assessment to know your gaps. I'm going to give you a checklist when it comes to OSHA as well. And if you need an expert, a compliance advisor to walk you through that as well, just let us know. My HIPAA advisors can help you with that as well when we help you with your risk assessment review. Okay, so we'll help you with the OSHA at the end of the day. So for the last leg of our webinar today, I want to turn our attention to cybercrime and cybersecurity, because this is what it's all about. At the end of the day, most breaches are because of it's our fault. It could have been avoided. It's human error. We clicked the wrong thing. We didn't do what we were supposed to do, and that causes a lot of breaches, right? I showed you the breach portal already. It can be very, very extremely costly to end up on here, as I brought up. EMR hacked, right? Just let's see, December 31st, my birthday, Fallon Ambulance Services was hacked, and their EMR program was hacked, and their whole server. Look at this, almost 1,900,000 records compromised. Remember, you can get fined per record. This is very, very valuable. Remember, if I said I said each record could be worth up to $1,000. That puts this nearly at like $1 billion worth of information that this one practice just had breached. So we want to make sure we're always on top of this stuff. So a couple things you must have at the end of the day. One, email encryption. Bottom line, have email encryption, okay? It's one of the most basic ways that we have PHI exposure. Most employees aren't understanding how risky this email thing is, right? And now, especially with that mobile devices are getting used, it's just driving more and more fraud. So for all my practices out there that still have Gmail accounts and Yahoo, at Yahoo, and my favorite, of course, at AOL.com, if that's the still email address you're using, you need to get off of it, okay? Doesn't have high enough grade that you need. It's not going to protect you. Besides the fact it's not that professional, it's not good enough, okay? So every time you send an email and every time you receive an email, it needs to be getting scanned. And when you're really sending PHI, it needs to go in an encrypted email format, okay? You got to have it. Anyone who's on our compliance program automatically is given this because you have to have it, period. So what about when we have an emergency? What do we do, right? Many of you might feel just like this guy. We have a plan, and it's probably to run around in circles shouting, what do we do? What do we do? Right? It really is really important. So what we're really moving into right now is our emergency and contingency planning. This is the #1 area where most practices are falling short, because it's, okay, I did my training, I have a binder, right? But where's my written out, fleshed out plan of when I'm breached? Most of you have never been through one, so where do we even get started? Okay, your backup and contingency plan needs to have specifics around how you back up your data, how you restore your data and your business, and how do you operate in an emergency mode of operations. I'll go back to like natural disasters and Katrina, and there's when things become an emergency, how do we access facilities, or how do we access somebody's PHI for the medical records because they're in the hospital over here? How do we get in there and get that information to go save their life? So we have to have an emergency mode of operations plan at the end of the day. It's fleshed out. Let me give you a visual here real quick. So back in the portal, I'll head to HIPAA, our HIPAA tab again, and then we have emergency planning. Okay. And this would be, it's not, I'm not going to open up every drop down, but here's you define, for example, who is on your emergency response team? Your office manager, your IT team, right? They should all be listed out here. What's their phone numbers? How do we reach them, right? Just like your data backup, you have to be very specific in your binder. Who's backing up my data? Who's responsible for that? What is their information? How often is it being backed up, right? Any information like that has to be in here, just like your emergency mode operations plan. You need to sit down, take a second, and we'll help you with it if you're with us, but you need to sit down and define what are those key processes that are critical to continuing operations during an emergency. List the information, the IT companies, everybody who's involved in accessing that information, right? This is all part of the emergency plan that many of you are missing. Very hard to develop on your own. And this is something that comes in handy because, again, this stuff is happening all the time. This one was huge in the headlines. Hundreds of dental offices crippled by ransomware attack. You can see it right here. We have no access to patient charts, schedules, x-rays, or payment ledgers. The doctor cannot do proper treatment without a chart history and x-rays. Take for a second and imagine your practice. You couldn't get on your computers. How are you going to make money? How are you going to do business? How long are you going to be down? How much is that going to cost you? So it's very important. The worst case scenario, you're backing up your data. If I need to wipe my computers because I had a ransomware attack, then I can just restore it. But because I've tested how long it takes to restore, I've done all that, I have a plan for all this, it's going to limit my exposure. So it's not about data backup, my friends. It is about data restoration. Take a second. How am I backing up my data? Have you ever tried restoring? I've talked about this a lot, but this is the difference between a lot of money for you. Okay. So I don't know what your plan is. We'll talk about it. We'll look in your risk assessment and see how you're currently doing it, but just always make sure it's getting done. So all of our clients, you get 100 gigabytes of data backup. We need to make sure we can get you back up and running, right? So this stuff is super important. It's happening every single day. We've talked about ransomware. I've talked about it a lot, right? I've talked about how it's happening, what's going on. It doesn't stop. It's only happening more and more often. So it's very important that you know what it is and how to stop it. And if you ever walk into your practice and your screen looks like this, I promise you it's the beginning of a bad day. Go say some cuss words, go take a shot, or whatever you need to do because it's the beginning of a bad day. It doesn't have to be the end of the world, but it is the beginning of a bad day. So this means your computer, you've fallen victim to ransomware. Somebody got in your computer, maybe that new hire opened the wrong email because they didn't go through training. Now you're dealing with this. What do we do? Well, specifically, there's a whole portion of the law about this called the breach notification rule that defines exactly what must happen in the event of a breach. Okay, if you have a breach, there's a whole lot of things that need to happen very quickly. Okay, you're going to have a complete forensic investigation completed. This itself is going to run you $30,000 to $50,000. You need a forensic team to come in there and go onto those computers and figure out how much data was compromised. Then they need to figure out, well, whatever was data was compromised and what wasn't. We need to separate the two, right? And anyone who did have their information stolen, we're going to have to let those clients know via first class mail. We'll email them also. We'll mail them a FAQ. We have to post all this stuff on our website. We have to alert the local media by law. That's why here, let me give you a quick example. If I go to the internet and I type in ransomware news, you are going to get article after article of stuff going on. Xerox subsidiary hit with a cyber attack yesterday. That one's big in the news today. Let's see. Targets. The DOJ is working against, so every single day you can go on here, there's new news about ransomware and cyber attacks. It's because they're required by law to report this stuff. And when they do, you got to set up a call center for 90 days for people to call in and ask you questions. You do all of that within a matter of days and notify the Department of Health and Human Services that that happened to you. And they're going to reward you for doing such a great job in reporting your breach that they're going to throw in a free audit. They're going to come in there and audit you. That's how you get on this website. All these people that happened to, and they did what they were supposed to do, and they got breached. Now, this doesn't mean they're at fault. This doesn't mean that they're being fined, but it is being reported. And you want to be able to make sure you're on the right side of that at the end of the day. So this is a lot of work. Can you imagine your office manager having to go through and report this breach, deal with the breach, manage all that? That is why I'm underscoring the importance of having an emergency plan, having people trained. Let's try to avoid it first, but if it happens, let's make sure we minimize the pain. Our clients have a whole process that's done for them at the end of the day. Inside the portal, all they got to do is click on report an incident, fill out these 20 questions, click submit, and at Rectangle Health, our entire team of breach coaches and HIPAA attorneys are going to jump into action and help you get this resolved and get your business back in action, whether it takes 2 hours or 2 months. But you have an entire team of professionals that are going to be working for you to help you navigate the breach notification rules, which is super important. So get the get the emergency plan in there and be familiar with the breach notification rule. And this can happen. You can get breached by a phishing attack. Phishing, unlike ransomware, is when you click on an email that's made to look like something else. The email is supposed to look very good on the outside, but once you really kind of get in there, you realize it's bad for you. It's bad for you, right? Here's an email that was sent out from Costco, a little bit older, but this is an example of a bad email. It looks good on the surface. When we start looking at it, it's from Costco shipping agent, but who's CBC building, right? There's no comma here. They're building urgency. Will pay your money back less 21% since you booked it for Christmas, which doesn't even sound realistic, right? There's clues in here, but they want you to complete this form that's going to include something to help them hack you, right? Looks good for you on the outside, very bad for you on the inside. Here's a PayPal example, a PayPal email. Same thing. We got ugly links up here. We got ugly links right here. We need your help. Your account has been suspended. There was a detected in your informations, bad grammar. There's always crumbs to this stuff, bad spacing here, but we got to pay attention to this stuff. This is phishing. Email looks good for you on the outside, terrible for you on the inside. My favorite one, the donut sandwich. Looks great for you on the outside, terrible for you on the inside. So stay away from this. This is Jacob's favorite sandwich. He told me before the webinar. Sorry, Jacob. All right. Polling question number 3, and we're almost wrapping this bad boy up. What is true about ransomware? Is it A, the payment of ransomware is typically paid through Bitcoin, which I may have mentioned. B, email phishing is a common gateway to network access and breaches. C, ransomware can encrypt or lock up all your data. Or D, all of the above. Counting on you guys. I need a 90% at least correct answer rate on this. Jacob, how we looking?
We're not looking as good as that chicken and donut sandwich.
I knew it. I knew you were
doing great. We're doing great. We're doing great. All right. We got 0% said the payment of ransom is typically through Bitcoin. 6% email phishing is a common gateway to network access. 7% ransomware can encrypt or lock your data, and everyone else, that looks like it's 85% said all the above.
Ooh, we were close. We were close. I told you we were going to keep getting a bit better. Good job, you guys. You're paying attention. So let's take this thing home here real fast. So we've had a breach, right? I did everything right? I did everything Terry told me to do. I got Office Safe bridge compliance. I trained my advisor. I trained my team. My compliance officer. I've trained my team. I've documented everything. I got 6 years of stuff in my binder. I've done everything I'm supposed to do, Terry. I got breached. Well, yeah, you're going to feel pretty good that I've helped eliminate your risk when it comes to these fines, right? We don't have to worry about HIPAA coming in here and fining us. They're going to open it. They're going to, you work at Rectangle Health? I'm not even going to look. I mean, it might not be like that, but you're not going to have to worry about that stuff because we have the most comprehensive program out there. But unfortunately, there's still other costs and financial risks associated with the breach that have nothing to do with the fine from the government, right? There's a lot of costs. Here's a real life example. Dr. Sharma, who was about to retire, had her bacon saved. I mean, just the fees of handling the lawyers to go do the negotiation of the ransomware itself was $90,000. That data restoration and decryption and all that, $37,000. That forensic investigation I told you about, which you got a whole forensic investigation team come out, $54,000. And we still had to pay 2 rounds of ransom payments in Bitcoin to those hackers to get everything back. This is nearly 200 grand in expenses and costs that had nothing to do with the government fining them. This was unavoidable. She got breached. It happened. So this is why we have to make sure we're protected on the other side, right? This is why it's super important that you have a cyber insurance policy that's really going to protect you in the event of something going wrong, okay? So a good cyber policy is going to include a lot of these features I'm showing you here. For example, all of our clients on our compliance program, we provide them this $250,000 policy. Key word here being guaranteed. That's something you don't usually see when it comes to insurance, right? We know insurance providers love to do one thing, and that's deny a claim. We don't want to pay that. This is a guaranteed policy, meaning if you're on our program, you're doing what we tell you to do, we'll come in there and take care of any of those extra costs. So you have a new employee that opened the wrong email, led to a data breach. Well, we're going to come in there. We'll help deal with the ransom costs, right? We're going to get that notification to all the patients out there. We're going to get the forensics done. HIPAA comes in there and finds something, we'll cover that as well. I doubt it, but we'll cover it. You're going to lose some time. Business won't be open the whole time. You're going to lose some business and profits. You know, we're going to have to restore that data. I mean, this is stuff you need. I showed you a simple breach for Dr. Sharma was 200 grand, and we've found that about $250,000 is enough to keep you generally safe. So this is super important because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this stuff happens to you. So the question is, how much is it going to cost you financially and time-wise? Are we going to get restored in 2 hours and only lose 2 hours of business? Or is it going to take us 2 weeks to get restored and then we're paying fines with HIPAA after that? That choice is completely up to you after this. But HIPAA is trying to do everything they can to get you to say, hey, do your risk assessment, fix the gaps we're pointing out, and you can avoid all this stuff. And you combine that with me telling you to get an insurance policy, you'll be in great shape. And this stuff is happening more and more every single day. So with that being said, my friends, let's take it into our 20 tips to protect your practice and close this bad boy out. Tip number 1, friends, update your HIPAA and OSHA plans, policies, and procedures. It's not enough just to say, I have a HIPAA binder. We got to do something with it. We got to keep it fresh, keep it updated, and you're probably going to need a little help to do that. So do the work, do the research, or give us a call. Number 2, document how PHI is accessed and secured during an emergency. This goes back to that emergency plan, okay? Make sure you have one, and everything in your binder, again, that policies, procedures, is the documentation of how and what you will do everything when it's related to HIPAA. So please get that stuff documented. Number 3, those business associate agreements. I think I made a pretty compelling argument about how we can avoid $1.5 million in fines by just making sure we identify all of our business associate agreements and get that simple document out to them to get them to sign. Now I want to point something out here that I failed to mention earlier, and that's these things are counter. Sometimes, let's say you sign up for a new practice management software, they give you a business associate agreement to sign. Every person you're working with should be given one to you so they can protect themselves. That has nothing to do with the fact you need to provide them one that they sign that's going to protect you. So technically, if both parties are doing really good, you guys both each are signing each other's, right? If they're not doing their part and you're doing yours, they sign yours, and you feel comfortable knowing that you may want to ask about it, but you do know you have the indemnification clause in there protecting you. Number 4, again, document all of your progress. I keep going back to this binder thing. It's because it's proof of how you will do everything or how you have done everything, right? It's either, that is what it is. It's all there. It's all in the binder. 6 years minimum worth of history on it. Everything's in that binder. Can I walk into your practice and know everything you're doing without you opening your mouth because you handed me your binder? That's the goal in a perfect world. Of course, number 5, please don't share your patient information without authorization. Make sure you're sending it to the right parties. Again, even going back to the family thing, this is sending the wrong email to the wrong person by accident is how people get upset. That's how they complain. It's going to generate a complaint. They're going to go complain to HIPAA. HIPAA is going to come in and say, hey, we've been getting complaints about you. Surprise audit. Let me see your HIPAA binder. And that's going to go one of 2 ways. So make sure you get that authorization at the end of the day. Take some time beyond just your annual training on reminding your employees of the dangers of downloads. I talked a little bit earlier about that culture of compliance, right? That should be a part of your monthly meetings, your weekly meetings. Bring it up, talk about it. Make that part of it. It's not a requirement you talk about this stuff every week or every month, but it is a good business habit to keep it fresh on everyone's mind in between those annual trainings that they get done. Number 7, never wire money from an email request. Always get on the phone with the person. And this seems like a no-brainer, but I gotta be honest. I had an employee 3 years ago who came running into my office. Hey, the CEO needs me to run to Walmart for him. I'm like, why would Jeff be calling you to run to Walmart for him? He needs me to send him some money from West. I'm like, don't do it. Did you, like, why would he be coming to you? This is the CEO. So it happens all the time. Just be smart about it. And this happens in real life too. Just be very aware of who you're talking to and where you're sending money. Number 8, be careful and aware of new employees and their access to PHI. Look, I spoke for a little while about doing background checks, and I get, hey, if you're in a small town in Iowa, everyone knows everybody. Chances are you're not going to do that background check. But if you're not going to go that far and do background checks, which don't show everything, keep an eye. New employees, I'm a lover, I'm a truster. I think the best in everyone when I see them. But the reality is some people, you only know what you see. And just keep an eye on those new hires, right? If you train them right away from day one, you should be able to keep an eye on if they're not doing anything they're supposed to do moving forward, because they can't say they didn't know, right, on the right way to do things. Number 9, don't share patient photos or information on your website or social media without patient consent. I had a quick story. I had a stepsister who was a nurse in Texas, in Austin, and there was a famous football running back in the Hall of Fame who's in the hospital getting cancer treatment, and she posted on her page, get well soon, so-and-so. Breach. You can't do that. That guy is in the hospital. You can't go broadcast to people that he's in the hospital. That is a violation. So just keep that in mind, especially when it comes also to how you read and respond to Google reviews and things like that. Don't break that confidentiality rule. Number 10, let's make these passwords more difficult than password 123 or the home rule password, ASDF GHJKL, right? Let's make these passwords a big deal, make them complicated enough, and that's all in your password security policy that should be in your binder. Number 11, always when using mobile devices, have a screen lock on it. I think this is common sense. We're all doing this these days. Hopefully we've learned that that's the only way to get things done, so get it done. Number 12, and if somebody enters in the wrong password too many times, there is usually an option that will wipe your phone clean. That's the safest way to play when it comes to any devices you're having PHI on. It's just not worth the risk. Number 13, of course, either work with your IT or yourself. Make sure that all your operating systems, your firewalls, your antivirus software is all up to date. These hackers come out with new stuff all the time, so it's important we keep our stuff updated at the end of the day. Number 14, I always encourage you to have an offsite data backup solution with at least 256-bit encryption, right? And what I mean by that is a cloud. A cloud-based data backup, and you should be backing up multiple days, Monday, Tuesday, Friday of every week, right? We need multiple sets because you don't know when you're breached. Sometimes that software can be sitting dormant for a while. So just multiple data backup sets. Number 15, I'm a glass half full guy. I don't expect things to go wrong, but things will. So plan for emergency and expect an emergency. Take that mentality towards what I've been talking to you about HIPAA and act like HIPAA's coming in there in March. What are you going to do to be ready for that audit in March, right? That work begins today, okay? Get the HIPAA risk assessment review scheduled. You have 30 days to fix all those gaps. Number 16, stay off of public Wi-Fi. Only bad things will happen. If you don't believe me, Google crack, okay, with a K. Public Wi-Fi is full of scary stuff. So use a VPN, keep your information safe, especially if you're using any material, laptops, computers, phones that have PHI on it. I wouldn't store any patient information on a laptop. That's just me. I'm gonna let you decide what you want to do from there, but that's tip number 17. Number 18, get rid of the Gmail, AOL, and Yahoo. Okay, get a real Exchange server that has greater security on it. Number 19, go get that cyber insurance or review what you currently have. Most likely you just have a rider. It's not enough. You haven't been underwritten. Okay, get that cyber insurance. If you need help being pointed in the right direction for the cheapest insurance and stuff like that, talk to your advisor about that during your risk assessment review. And last but not least, obtain your PCI certification, right? This is saying I'm handling my PCI the right way. I'm attesting to it. I'm doing my vulnerability scans, doing everything I need to do to protect my credit card information as well. So with that, my friends, bring it all together. We've talked about a lot, right? Breaches are going to happen. I need all of you to really avoid willful neglect. HIPAA covers a lot of different areas. There's a lot of different areas that Rectangle Health can help you improve and make sure you're buttoned up. At the end of the day, you got to take that first step, okay? Again, all of my team are going to be giving you a call and getting you scheduled for appointments, okay? We're going to call you on that number, and if you think it needs to go to somebody else, just tell us who else to call, and we'll give them a call and get that risk assessment scheduled. Remember, and if they need to redo another risk assessment, we'll just help them do one. If your boss says, oh, no, she doesn't know what she's doing, we'll say, no problem. We'll do one with you, and then we'll walk you through that risk assessment. Either way, these risk assessments need to be done. Now that you've taken the risk assessment, you got 30 days to fix these gaps. And I showed you that on the law. So we're just here to help. You don't have to expect any type of sell or anything like that from my team. We'll help you if you need it. We're a compliance company. We would love to be yours, but you and I both don't know if you even need the help. Let's complete your education. Let's see if and when you need help. And if so, we'll show you a couple options of the best in class stuff. But just do your part first, which is get educated and review that risk assessment at the end of the day. And also we'll email out an additional, the link to the certified HIPAA officer training. So if you have an office manager or you book your appointment risk assessment review with us, I highly encourage you to do the training beforehand. It'll just help with the conversation. It's not a requirement, but it's just more help, more free CE to help build up that knowledge and make you effective at what you're here to do. So we are happy to help. We're going to be giving you a call. And at the end of the day, that pretty much wraps up this beginning of the year, January HIPAA CE. So thank you all for the opportunity to give you a speak. Hopefully I kept you awake. Hopefully it was useful. I really look forward to working with all of you. If you end up talking to anyone on my team, tell them to tell me I said hi. I always appreciate hearing that. And with that, I'm out. Thank you so much for your time. Jacob, close us out.
All right. Well, thank you, Terry. Really appreciate it. Great content as always. So before you guys jump off with that, the CE is officially over. So as mentioned before, you will be getting an email within the next 2 weeks with your CE credits if you stayed on for the duration of the presentation. I just put a link in the chat. If you want to book a demo of our HIPAA and OSHA compliance solution, feel free to go through and click that link there. And someone from our team will reach out and show you more info on that. Also, I've gotten a few questions about it. I know I mentioned it before, but we are sending out in the next 24 hours a link to the slides, the recording, HIPAA certified officer training. So everything you need is coming your way there. And then once you close out of this, you're going to be prompted to complete a brief survey. Please do that. Really important for us, so we can get feedback from you. But with that, that's all from us. So thank you again for joining us today. Have a great rest of your week. Happy New Year, and we'll see you at our next webinar. Take care.
Take care, everyone.